Hello, my name's Richard Baker. I'm Strategy and Policy Director at the North East LEP. I'm sitting here in the common room in the centre of Newcastle. I'm delighted to be able to introduce to you our two reports that we're publishing today. They bring together a whole range of evidence about the North East economy, about our current performance and about the response to COVID-19 and EU exit. Evidence is at the centre of the work that the North East LEP does to provide leadership and support to the North East economy and our partners who work with us to deliver an improved, more and better jobs for all the people in the North East. Now looking at our long-term performance, I'm going to speak to the two charts that are on this slide. The targets we set in 2014 were to see 100,000 more jobs by 2024. We also set a target that 70% of the net jobs growth would be in professional, technical and leadership roles. The chart shows that by March 2020, we'd added almost 70,000 new jobs to the economy and had overperformed on the 70% target. The statistical quirk that 113% of the growth is in better jobs reflects that the growth in these jobs has outstripped the loss of other jobs in the economy as it's changed. By March 2021, we can see that our progress on overall jobs numbers has reduced by about 9,500, but that the better jobs proportion strengthened, suggesting that the higher value parts of our economy have been the most resilient. In our plan, we called out 4 areas of our economy which are strategically important to the future growth and competitiveness of our region: in energy, life sciences, advanced manufacturing and digital, and 4 key sectors which support the wider economy, also likely to be the source of better service sector jobs. The middle chart on this page shows that it's in these parts of the economy we've seen the longer term growth in the proportion of the jobs in the region. As we move on to the next slide, we're going to pick up the issue of levelling up, which is very high on the political agenda. We've been looking at levelling up in the North East since we set the targets in the Strategic Economic Plan in 2014. We've always looked at our region's position within the UK, what are the interregional inequalities, and looked at imbalances within the region. And you'll find data on both of those key questions in our Economy 2021. In 2014, when we established our more and better jobs targets, we set 4 key indicators that we believe would demonstrate that the region was levelling up compared with the rest of England: on productivity, on the employment rate, on economic activity, and on private sector's jobs density. And we set targets to close the gaps with national performance. We believe that the North East can make a much stronger contribution to the UK economy with the right support and investment. Closing the gap on these established indicators would be a strong signal that we've delivered a levelled up North East. Our economy shows that we've made progress on both the labour market indicators, with gaps closing on the employment rate and on economic inactivity since 2014. During the pandemic, I have to say that the gap has also continued to close, although we should note that in this instance it was because the North East was impacted less badly than elsewhere. The data on productivity of private sector employment is quite lagged, so it's really difficult to tell at this stage, but our performance has gone up since 2014. Whether the gap goes up or down when the next set of data is released, there will remain a significant gap for us to address if we're to achieve a genuinely levelled up region. I want to speak a little bit about some of the headlines from some of the other parts of our economy. Firstly, on business growth, we're seeing strengthened scale-ups. We're seeing progress in international trade and services, both really important because of their contribution to better jobs in the economy. But we need to make more progress on startup. We've got positive signs on business R&D expenditure and on patents, and in both of those areas we're closing gaps with national averages. But we've got a long way to go still if we're going to achieve the government's R&D target. We've seen significant growth in level 4 qualifications and managed to reduce the number of people in the region with no qualifications. However, whilst we've made good progress amongst most transport indicators, we've seen a significant impact from COVID-19 with a shift from public transport to the private car. The team has also produced sections summarising data about key government policy priorities included in the Plan for Growth. But this year we summarise levelling up data within the region, developing some of the place-based data sets we published last year, reports on the region's transition to net zero, our engagement with the global economy, looking at trade, investment and other international links, and finally some updated data on the North East's economic geography, showing the flows of people and business activity between our places. At this point, I'm going to turn to the Insights report looking at the impact and experience of COVID-19 and EU exit on the North East. It's quite detailed. It includes a range of data and survey evidence and the results of interviews with a range of our partners in sectors and businesses and local authorities over the last 2 years. Looking at the impact on the economy and on business, there are a number of charts in the report which have the same shape as the first one and shows the pattern of the COVID shock, with a big fall in the second quarter of 2020 and recession in the next quarter, and then a recovery, which stuttered through a number of lockdown events. You might also note in the northeast line the drop-off in GDP in the final quarter of 2019 in the run-up to EU exit at the end of January. Businesses were hit very hard at the start of the pandemic and have then bounced back. There was damage to balance sheets holding back investment, particularly amongst our small and medium enterprises. The North East had higher rates of businesses drawing on support grants and loans. But around 90% of businesses in the region were trading from mid-November 2020 to early April 21. This had risen to 98% of businesses by July 2021. There's some evidence of a new COVID-19 economy, with increases in the company registrations in manufacturing and retail of medical equipment, pharmaceutical goods, specialist clothing and PPE, and cleaning supplies and services. The second chart on the slide shows that throughout the pandemic, there have been sectors who've done well, and these include energy, life sciences, digital, and some retail. For others, the impact has been severe in hospitality, culture, and aviation, for example. The value of exports and imports from and to the North East region showed strong recovery to pre-COVID levels in the second half of 2020, but unlike the wider recovery, subsequently declined in Q1 2021. Analysis suggests that the strong recovery in the final quarter might have been partially about stockpiling, and the North East Chamber of Commerce reports that its members, in particular SMEs, have experienced increased difficulties trading with the EU since January 2021. Wider data supporting our trade strategy shows stronger growth in service exports with some growth in online trading. Looking now at the impact on people in the labour market, it's also a complex picture. The first chart shows the pattern of payrolled employees. The number was rising between February 2019 and February 2020, before falling sharply between March and April 2020. It rebounded subsequently, and by June 2021, there were 801,000 payrolled employees in the North East LEP area, actually 940 higher than in February 2020. The unemployment rate rose to 5.8% in May 2021, lower than we feared, but an increase of 8% on the year. The economic inactivity rate rose by 7%. The number of people claiming unemployment-related benefits rose by 65% between February 2020 and May 2020, and the claimant count has fallen since January 21, with a rate of decline appearing to quicken in May and June. However, 76,000 people were claiming benefits in June 2021, 40% more than in February 2020. On furlough, 39.5% of eligible jobs were furloughed at some point during the pandemic, with the peak at 127,000 in July 2020. Since January, the numbers furloughed have fallen rapidly to about 50,800 in June this year, and the data shows that about half of that final group were working part-time, and hopefully that connection to the labour market will mean they will retain their jobs as the furlough finally finishes. But the status of others is uncertain. The outcomes for these two groups will be a key issue for the next few months. Despite these challenges, ONS analysis shows that the number of online job vacancies in the North East region at the end of July 2021 was 165% of their level in February 2020, significantly higher than levels in England. There's strong demand in a number of sectors, and a key issue now is the issue of mismatches. People have moved, left the labour force, or started a business, and skills demand is different to previous, with concentrations in different sectors and a demand for digital skills. So I've given you a lot of data and a lot of detail. I now want to bring that together and draw out what we think are some of the key opportunities, challenges and changes that have occurred as a result of our experience over the last 2 years. And I'm delighted that we have 3 businesses who are going to tell us of their own experience, who will form the panel and discuss some of these issues later on. Looking at our opportunities first, our areas of strategic importance have performed well during the pandemic. We've seen growth and new investment coming into the region, and the widening interest in the long-term resilience of the economy focused on decarbonisation and health provides an opportunity for our health and life sciences sector and our renewables and energy sectors. Innovation and digitalisation has been at the heart of the response. We've seen businesses involved in the development of vaccines and ventilators and PPE. And we've also seen local innovation in our retail sector as we've responded to some of the changes on the high street. We've seen a renewed focus on startups. The furlough scheme itself has given people the opportunity to try out new things, and we've seen a number of new businesses created that provide an opportunity for growth in startups. The pandemic has seen a growing interest in startups. Some people have left work to start new businesses, and furloughs given people an opportunity to try to create new ventures. The volume and quality of inward investment into the region has held up well. We've seen new investment and home shoring of supply chains in areas like batteries and advanced manufacturing. And there's been significant additional government investment into the region, which has accelerated a number of projects, which creates an opportunity for the future. Now moving on to look at some of the challenges. A number of businesses and sectors have been severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of skills shortages and debt. Over the long term, sectors are looking at strategies for change which will enable them to be more resilient in the future. There's been significant challenges in the labour force where supply has declined or skills have changed. There's been particular issues for a number of groups within the labour force. Women were more likely to be faced by unemployment. Younger and older workers have faced particular barriers, and we've seen a particular decline in the living standards of some of our people in some of our most disadvantaged communities. There's therefore a need to strengthen our focus on the needs of some of the people who face the most challenges, including our young people who will need support to make progress. The global economy continues to be challenging for traders and transport bodies who both need support to overcome COVID. For the most part, digital infrastructure has performed well but needs to be continued to invest in to support new business models and hybrid working. And respondents believe that changes to the high street will become embedded, which will need us to think carefully about the future for our towns and cities. And then finally on changes, looking at some of the changes that we saw during the COVID pandemic, which are likely to become embedded. Firstly, home working and hybrid working will become an embedded feature of working life because of the business benefits and the personal choices people are making, with impacts on working practice, demand for business accommodation, housing, and the roles of places and infrastructure. There's likely to be a knock-on impact on patterns of transport and mobility as people and businesses make these changes. Some of the attitudinal changes have created an opportunity to shift the dial on the environment, but with some risk areas as people have made a shift from public transport to private transport. There are similar attitudinal changes around health at work and the relationship with our towns and places. The combined effects of EU exit and the pandemic have made people think about the resilience of their business models and supply chains and highlighted the potential for increased home working and inward investment to strengthen clusters in the northeast. And the recovery phase has seen new interest in domestic tourism. This can be built on with new products in the region which can open up international markets in the future. So I'll stop there. I've summarised 2 significant reports which I hope you'll take the time to download from our Evidence Hub. I'll be part of the panel later on and look forward to take any questions or points for clarification. Thank you.